Issei was betrayed and got Carnage. Alright, part 3. So, the previous part, Drake has just been killed and Carnage has consumed Drake, thus gaining his power. So, Issei still has the boosted gear. It's just Carnage is in the boosted gear and still in his body at the same time. He split himself. So, what's on his hand currently is just Carnage. And the boosted gear isn't actually there. He has the ability of it. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's get back into the what if. Issei, after hearing that Drake was killed, didn't really think much of it because while Drake tried to abandon him, he does not like people that try to betray him. And he thinks they should all be killed, executed, destroyed, with no mercy, and tortured to the very brink that they question their very sanity. So Issei was thinking this right when he got up. He got up out of bed, he went down the stairs, and he remembers the lunchboxes he made. So he gets those 2 lunchboxes, takes them out, and takes them with them because he already signed up for school. And just so you know, Issei looks nothing really different, really. So Issei just walks into school, everyone's looking at him with disgust, and he's all cheerful and happy and all that. And they're wondering, what the fuck is wrong with this kid? We're looking at him like he's nothing, and he's just smiling. And someone tries to bully him, and they're trying to pick on him in front of the school, and they're throwing a punch. All Issei does is he places his food down on the ground, grab really quickly, and grabs the punch. Literally just goes back into his original position, grabs the punch, and punches the bully in the gut 5 times, like jabbing very quickly. And then he tells Carnage makes the fingertips of his actual nails a little sharp. And then he starts gutting him with his fingernails, very slightly, and people can see a little bit of bleeding. But they don't know how he's bleeding from punches, because Issei does not have a visible weapon. And people recording this are in shock and they're throwing up because Issei continuously is doing it, even though the guy's begging and crying for him to stop. And Issei finally stops, and he punches him in the face, slams his head against the ground, and starts stomping his head over and over until his nose is completely broken. His face looks like it's about to shatter. And then he stops, picks up his lunchboxes, says, "Oh, I hope everyone else had a wonderful day. Don't be like this dipshit and fuck with me, or you'll be on the ground way worse than this guy." And then he just kicks him in the head and just walks away. And everyone is stuck shocked. People that have recorded this are uploading this to literally RedTube and all other social medias. And that video is going viral. And Issei just walks into the school. Everyone's looking at him and in disgust, because most of them haven't seen the video yet, and some of them are trying to bully him. But then Issei, as soon as they try to bully him, like one person sticks out his foot, Issei literally just steps on the foot and breaks it. You could hear the bone crunching downwards. You could hear it break. And everyone heard this. And they're still literally in front of the school. Like, he just entered into the school. And just, as soon as he breaks the guy's leg, he just walks away. And the guy's screaming in agony. And Issei's just literally listening to this like music. And he says, "You should make an album. That sounds like a beautiful song." And he's just laughing maniacally. And he just walks up the stairs. And he goes up to his classroom. He opens his door. And he says, "Hi, everyone, I'm back." And they're all looking at him with fear, because they've already seen the video. And the teacher has seen the video. Only thing is, no one can really do anything because it was self-defense. They all saw in the video that the guy swung first. So, they can't really do anything. Even though he took it a little too far. But, well, the kid was notorious for brutalizing people. The one that was trying to brutalize Issei. So they could pretty much drop the charge on him. So Issei was just going all the way to the back of the class. Everyone was just literally trying to move away from him like he's an atomic bomb. Yeah. And Issei is in front of Koneko, sits right in front of her, and Koneko is about to, like, tap Issei's shoulder, and then Carnage pops out and bites Koneko's hand. And Koneko is screaming, like, "Ah, my hand!" And they're all looking at her like she's insane because Issei has not moved. And Carnage just, like, sinks back into his skin and just starts laughing, saying, "Her blood tastes delicious. Can we eat her head now?" And Issei literally just says out loud, "Not now, maybe later." And people are thinking he's crazy because he's talking out loud to himself. And Carnage is like, you forgot to talk in your head. I think they think you're more crazy." And he's like, "Let them. I don't give a fuck." And yeah, so the class was continuing. Koneko is wondering what the hell that was. And she's trying to talk to Issei. But every time she tries to talk to Issei, she get a bite mark on her hand. She has like 7 bite marks by now. She tried to talk to Issei 7 times, and Kara just starts biting into Koneko. Not ripping her flesh or anything, just leaves a little visible bite mark with some blood bleeding out. And Issei just gets up, and Koneko just literally just is from a distance this time, not trying to touch Issei, and says, "Issei, are you okay?" And Issei looks behind and looks at her and says, "Oh, I'm perfectly fine. Just your ORC club betrayed me, and they ended up Rias me for something I didn't do, saying that I raped her, when I didn't, and she literally tried to kill me." Which everyone's ears were raised and said, "Wait, what? Rias tried to kill him?" And they thought that it might have been like, he was trying to force himself on her again. And Issei said, "Nope, that is not the case. If you're thinking I forced myself on her, because I'm not really into her. I think she's a stupid skank. I think she's a prostitute that's going to be on the streets and try to drag men into dark alleys so she can blow their brains out." And they're all, like, shocked that Issei's saying this stuff, because Issei wasn't like this before. Like, yeah, he had anger problems sometimes when you fucked with him too much, but he never really started beating people down like this. Like, yeah, he did this, like, yesterday, but it wasn't that bad. Well, not yesterday, like 2 days ago. It wasn't that bad, though. To them, it was only 2 days. But to Issei, it felt like a lifetime, because of his madness. Issei just walked away. Koneko was following him, and Issei said, "Kitty cat, why don't you just go to someone else and stop hanging on to me, you fucking tray? I don't really want to have a pussy cat around me, unless I get some of that pussy." And Koneko's like, "What?" She's surprised, because Issei is being very vulgar. And Issei's just laughing at his own joke he just made, and he just starts walking away and goes to the cafeteria. The cafeteria ladies look at him and they refuse to serve him any food. And Issei says, "Well, I don't actually need your food anyway. I think I can have my own." And he looks at the bully that he just beat the shit out of earlier, and the bully looks at him in fucking fear, because Issei is looking at him not like how a human would look at another human, but like how a bear would look at a cat, or how a bear would look at a fox, like prey. Issei was looking at him like prey, and the guy like started running out of the cafeteria. Issei was following, and he went to the restroom and started trying to calm himself down. Maybe he wasn't looking at me, maybe he was looking at someone else. And Issei just walked in, and he just said, "Carnage, do you want some free food?" And he said this out loud, and the guy was confused about what happened. He's like, "I'll give you my lunch, just don't hurt me, man." And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to enjoy this." And Koneko was tailing him, and she's listening in, and she's peeking around the corner, seeing what Issei's doing. And Issei turns into Carnage and just gets closer, and the guy's screaming, "What are you? What are you?" And he's literally on the floor on his ass, literally crawling back, and Issei's grabbing him by the legs in his Carnage state, chomping his legs off, devouring him, and he's screaming in pain. No one can hear him because Issei erected a soundproof barrier around him, and he's just munching on him. And Koneko is watching this in fear, and she is scared because Issei's never done anything like this. She doesn't know what that creature is that's around him. Doesn't know what that suit is. That does not look like Drake. And it scares her because she can feel a malevolent force from it. Her animalistic instincts are saying, get away from him as soon as possible. And luckily for her, she follows them. Issei noticed that she was there, but he wanted to inflict as much fear as possible into her. And Issei is just munching down on him. He's begging for his life. His legs are already eaten by Carnage. And he goes up closer to him, face to face, and says, "Time to eat." And his mouth grows wider, and he just chomps the boy's head off, and just starts chewing the brain and devouring it, and devours the rest of the body. And there is no evidence left. There's no bones. He eats even the bones. And he just walks out like nothing happened. No one could hear the screams, except for Koneko. And Koneko, we're gonna scene break to Koneko. She's running into the ORC as fast as possible, and then she hears something. She hears footsteps behind her, and she's thinking this is Issei, and she's running quicker now, and she trips, she falls, and she's begging for her life, and she looks behind her and sees it was just Kiba. And Kiba chased after her because, well, he saw that she was very distressed, and Koneko was like, Issei, he's a monster. And she's hyperventilating, and she has so much stress and panic that she passes out. And Kiba just takes her to the ORC, and we see him right back to Issei. He had just gotten out of the restroom, and he went back to the cafeteria. And people noticed that he followed the bully, but they noticed the bully didn't walk out, which very much unsettled them. And they're wondering what happened, but they thought maybe he might have ran out of school or something. I mean, if I got my ass whooped that bad, I'd run out of school. I wouldn't want another folding like that. Another brutal beatdown. And they didn't really think much of it. And Issei was just smiling in a corner table by himself. No one wanted to get near him. Some people watched him, and they were just unsettled because Issei was smiling the entire day in madness. Sometimes he just let out a fucking laugh in the middle of classes, or whenever he's walking, he's just laughing to himself while talking to Carnage, explaining his plans of how he's going to gruesomely destroy the ORC and everyone that betrayed him, and this whole world will kneel before him. He will destroy everything. And they just laughed to themselves, and everyone could see this madness unfold, and they did not want to go near Issei. Because of them, they just saw him laughing like a maniac. Random intervals, like a maniac. The end of the school day, Issei's walking out of the campus, and then Rias is in front of him, and she's staring at him in shock. And she asks, "How are you still alive? You fucking failure. I know I blew a hole through you. You should have been dead." And Issei walks up to her and says, "Oh no. I'm not the normal Issei you're used to. I was reborn new. I'm a new Issei that will." And he walks up closer, whispers in your ear, "That will end you, your family, and make you watch as I rip them to shreds in front of you. And then I will enact my revenge by tearing everything you love and hold dear to you in front of you." And his voice starts getting deeper, and it starts turning into something that Rias could only think of as a monster's voice. This does not sound like Issei. And he said, "I will rip their flesh from their body, and I will devour it in front of you, and tear everything to shreds. I will destroy your entire race. I will destroy all devils, all angels, all fallen angels, and I will unleash true carnage on this world. And he just pushes her to the side. She falls to the ground, and Issei just walks away, and Rias is visibly shook. She's terrified because that had such resolve, and she believes he can do it. She doesn't know why she does, but she believes he can do it. This terrifies her. So she calls Sir Zex and explains the situation. Sir Zex has panic on his face a little, thinking that maybe he still has, he still has Drake with him. But Rias says, I didn't feel Drake's energy source. I felt it, but it wasn't Drake. It was something else. And this alarms Sir Zex more, because he thought of another dragon, which no one had the wielder of, that no one wielded. He thought it was that dragon. It was not, but the panic had him on his edge, and everyone was very alarmed in the devil community, because Sir Zex, not wanting to make Issei enraged, told everyone about what happened to Issei between Rias and Issei, how Rias betrayed him violently, just hoping this would appease Issei, because if he has such a power, his little sister's fame or glory and all that stuff didn't really matter. So he told everyone. This reached news to Koneko and Rias' barrage, who were very disappointed in Rias, and Rias was shut into a room and grounded. Issei was cut back to Issei, who's walking home into his home. He goes in, and you're probably wondering where the lunch boxes were. You're about to find out. He goes into his room, goes into his house, goes to his room, lays down, and is about to drift out to sleep and said, I wonder if they got my gift. And outside of Koneko and all of their houses, their dorms, they see 2 lunch boxes labeled for them. And they were full of food that looked very delicious. So they microwaved it, and they started eating and chowing down. And Rias and all of them were chowing down on the food, eating delightfully. They all hated Rias still. And they were eating, and, well, Rias noticed when she was eating into the meatloaf that when she spit it out because she bit on something hard, she saw an engagement ring and a severed fingernail. And they all started throwing up. They found out that this was made out of human flesh. They threw up. They were barfing. They were disgusted, enraged, and disgusted with themselves that they ate this. They should have thought more about what this was. They thought they were so stupid for doing this. And they're barfing everywhere. And Rias is visibly panicked and goes to her room and just is in a corner hyperventilating, because she already has enough stress on her as it is. And Issei, we cut back to Issei. He's drifting off to sleep and said, they probably got the gift. And he's just smiling and laughing while he's sleeping. The disturbing part about Issei is, even when he's asleep, he has this smile forever put on his face when he's sleeping. And it's terrifying. Carnage is loving Issei, how much anger, rage, and insanity he has. And he's thinking this is the perfect host. And he's delighted with Issei's progression. The next day, Issei decides, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Because he had information about, well, Cocoville and his movements. So Issei is thinking about meeting Cocoville. But before that, I'm going to stop the what if. This is what if Issei was betrayed and got Carnage. Part 3, I believe. Also, down below, I have a link to my Patreon. I'm only doing this so I can get better equipment. So, if you're one of the people that are, like, talking about how there's a background noise, if you want to fix that, you could always donate to me so I can get better equipment, because I honestly am not very much doing well when it comes to finances. Anyway, goodbye everyone.